Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. We're going to be talking about accelerating content creation with AI. So, very exciting topic. Anderson and I were just chatting before we started about how if you were at DevLearn last week, this is a hot topic. Doug here just came in from the AI and Education Summit in Boston. So, I think this is definitely top of mind for folks excited to be joining you all today to talk about it. Now, before we dive in and we start talking really practically, just want to cover some housekeeping. So if you haven't attended a webinar before, welcome. Or if you haven't attended a webinar with Intellum before, welcome. We love to engage with you. So I want to encourage you. Someone's already dropped a note in the chat. There's a chat at the bottom of your screen. Would love if you would let us know that you're here and where are you calling in from. So I'm calling in from Black Mountain, North Carolina, just east of Asheville. Doug's in the Boston area and Anderson's in Portland. I'm going to give them a moment to introduce themselves later, but we'd love to hear from you in the chat. There's also a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. So if you have questions as we're going, I know this is a really hot topic and there's a lot of questions that people have about AI in general, AI for content creation, data security and privacy. So questions are welcome. Just use that Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. That just helps us to streamline all of the questions. This webinar is being recorded, so if you want to come back to it later, you're welcome to do that. And then, of course, at the end of the webinar, right? So kind of like if you're working in education, you want feedback from the people to understand what's working, what's not working, what do you want to see? We want to get that same feedback from you. So at the end of the webinar, you will get an automatic survey from Zoom that asks you to just share a little bit of feedback about the webinar itself. How'd it go? What did you like? Is there any other content that you'd like to see? Our content calendar is really shaped by y'all and what you're thinking about and what's top of mind for you. So with that, I'm going to turn it over real quick to Doug and Anderson just to introduce yourselves, and then we'll get started.
Brilliant. I get to go first. That's so exciting. Thank you, Shannon, and thanks everyone. It's exciting to be here. Like Shannon said, I literally just got back. In fact, the conference is still going on in Boston, but have been hearing all about AI and education this morning, so really excited to talk to you all about it. I am the CEO and founder of Fresh Cognate. Fresh Cognate is a instructional design and an educational software company and research. We're really committed to innovative education that delivers behavioral change at scale. That's what we're really, that's what we spent our whole career working on. Fresh Canadian's been around for about 11 or 12 years. And formerly before that, I was an educational leader at Google and worked very closely with Intellum there. And that's kind of how I got to know Intellum pretty well. With that, I will hand the mic over to my esteemed colleague, Anderson.
Thanks, Doug. Yeah, so my name is Anderson. I'm the product marketing director at Intellum, and I this is a kind of second career for me. My first career was actually all in education. I was an educator in the higher ed system in the United States, and where I taught courses from for 18-year-olds all the way up to 80-year-olds at all levels of U.S. higher education. So I taught undergraduate courses, graduate courses on both the master's and the doctoral levels, and really enjoyed that. And then when I pivoted over into tech, my first role was in customer education, and a lot of the frameworks and the things that I knew about adult learning applied really well over in customer education. Then found my way into product marketing, and now do product marketing for a corporate education company. So, like, all of the roads have kind of led me to this particular place. So, I'm really delighted to talk with you all about the ways that Intellum specifically is working on helping you all create content faster, but maintain a really high bar of quality and instructional design. So that's going to be fun. My role is going to be to help kind of show off some of the stuff that we're doing, and I'm looking forward to doing that and chatting with Doug along the way.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you guys are both here. Definitely value both of you, your perspectives, experiences. And so if you haven't been to an Intellum webinar before, we really like to make sure that this is practical, approachable, that you're really taking something away. So just so you know kind of how this is going to flow, we're going to talk a little bit about AI, kind of the promise of AI, pitfalls of AI, how we need to be thinking about working with AI. And then Anderson and Doug are actually going to go in and they're going to, in real time, create a course with us and create learning materials, content related things in real time, talk us through that process, show us how it works, and then the things that we need to be mindful of or thinking about, questions we need to be asking, things we need to consider along the way. And this is where, if you have questions as we're going, right? I was just having a conversation with someone earlier about kind of the rise again of virtual instructor-led training and just this real time, this opportunity for us to be together in real time, talking with each other, and then that ability to ask questions as we're watching and learning, right? So if you're watching on demand, feel free to reach out to us later on. But in real time, we have that opportunity to just take questions as we go. So why are we having this conversation? In 2024, we commissioned a study through Forrester and we asked 300 education decision makers to tell us a little bit about what was top of mind for them, what they were thinking about. And one of those things we asked them was, how are you thinking about AI, using AI? And the largest percentage of people said that they were most interested in applying AI for content creation. And this is where we see a lot of opportunity with generative AI in particular, is creating content. And so that's really cool for us as education teams because, for years we've had this saying of do more with less. And I genuinely abhor this saying because I just don't think that it's practical to do more with less. And over the years, I've said bake more cakes with fewer ingredients and tell me how that turns out. It is just not possible. But with AI, we can actually finally maybe start to realize the promise of doing more with less if we're thinking about it the right way. And so today we want to talk about how do we do that the right way, which leads me into what are some of those pitfalls of AI? You've probably heard the term AI slop. AI can spit out some ugly things, some inaccurate things, some different things that we want to be mindful of. So a lot of this is about how do we interact with especially generative AI well, right? So thinking about what input are we giving it? How are we structuring that input? Are we putting guardrails and guidelines in place? So if you think about AI as an extension of your team, what would you do if you were onboarding a new team member? You'd give them guidelines and you'd give them, here's our design methodology and here's our review process and here's maybe unique things in our lexicon, our vocabulary that we want to be mindful of. Like we would say this way. And so in the same way that you would train and onboard a new employee, we need to be thinking about AI that way too, as an extension of our team, and we're interacting with it and we should expect to give it some feedback. Like we are not going to get exactly what we want on day one. Anderson and Doug are going to talk to you about that. Which leads me to just maybe my final pitfall of AI, but this is really the opportunity for us, is this idea that it requires oversight. We do not, it would be irresponsible of us to implement generative AI today into our content design process and not have anybody reviewing the input or the output, especially the output. And Doug's going to share a little bit about how his team employs a human in the loop in the process of AI content creation. But this is really the opportunity for us to maybe get out of all of the weeds of things. I don't know, Anderson, I've talked before, like I've said before who liked creating assessment questions because I never did. But then someone said, I actually really love that. I'm like, okay, you are one in a million, my friend. But not all of us like to create assessment questions. We've talked before about learning objectives and how not everybody likes creating learning objectives, but they're so critical for designing quality learning content. So we'll talk a little bit about that today as well, the role of learning objectives in AI content creation, or AI content creation specifically for education, learning, and development. Um, so that's just a little bit of like context thought. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here and turn it over to Anderson and Doug to kind of walk us through process, methodology, and in real time, like creating something from scratch.
I was gonna say, okay, cool. Thank you, Shannon. And like Anderson, I also am a former teacher as well and taught kindergarten through college, actually. So uh, I loved Shannon's introduction because I really do want to encourage us to ask questions as we go along. Our learning objectives, if you will, I can't break myself from being an instruction designer, is to make this as practical for all of you guys as possible. And so with that, we will talk a little bit about, what Intellum has to offer, but I think also I'm here to give as many tips as I can and tricks about what we're learning so far about working with AI as instructional designers, and also would love to hear the things that you all are learning as well, right? I'm sure there's a lot of amazing advice in the community out there, and this is definitely, one of the things about AI is it's an emergent technology, right? So like we didn't get to, there wasn't a choice to adopt it; it adopted us, and so we are all building the plane as we fly it, right? And so it does sometimes feel like we're flying by the seat of our pants, but that's kind of the fun part sometimes. Um, one last thing that I'll kind of say before we like kick it all off is, and this was I think one of the most salient points that was shared this morning at the conference is that AI doesn't. So first of all, AI is just this randomization machine, right? There was actually this report. There was this researcher who was talking and said fourth graders. If you ask fourth graders about AI, they think AI is perfect. They think it's like a an omniscient being, and they were talking about a lesson they designed to expose that AI is not that omniscient being. And the point that was made that I thought was really salient is that AI does not exist and does not work without data. Um, and data is the driver of it. Without it, there is no AI at all, right? And I think that I'll say we partnered with Intellum for many years, and one of the things that I think is the core promise or kind of leading advantage that Intellum has as compared to other LMSs and course authoring tools out there is that it is in fact an LMS and also a course authoring tool. Oftentimes there's kind of a split between those. And what that means is that the data then is split between those two systems. And so I think I will say, like, we're going to talk a little bit about some of those things that Intellum has been working on here and how we use them as instructional designers. But one of the future promises here is that because this is all potentially a shared data set, it really allows for, I think, instructional designers to do things that would be more of a fragmented experience in a lot of other systems. And so that is really, I think, one of the core sort of competitive differences about, and not to, by the way, like I am an independent contractor. We work with lots of different LMSs, but I will say like that is one thing that when we work with Intellum that I think is really a neat part of the architecture.
Yeah. Thanks, Doug. Yeah, I think when I think about the problems that Intellum is trying to solve, we usually talk about them in terms of the three personas that we really care about. Those are the content creators, program managers or admins, and then the learner. And what we have done with, and start showing this now, but what we've done with content creation as we think about artificial intelligence is really think through um, what are the areas where content creators get stuck or end up spending a lot of time and effort trying to go from 0 to 1? And then how can AI help them go from 0 to 1? That for me was always the bottleneck for content creation as an educator is the blank page. I would stare at a blank page for a new piece of curriculum I was going to write or an assessment that I needed to draw up. And it was always like, where do I even get started? Once I was started, like iteration, revision, all that kind of stuff was a lot easier. And I actually enjoyed that. I was talking with a colleague yesterday about DevLearn, and he said that in his estimation, the sessions that were the highest attended at DevLearn were about utilizing AI for content creation. None of them were about content creation tools that are AI based. And so
Mm-hmm.
they were all about like how do we use things like ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini for the different content creation and instructional design processes. And they were mostly sessions of tips and tricks and prompting guides and learning how to utilize AI. And I thought that that dovetailed so well with what we're going to talk about today because we'll explore this along the way as we get into sort of more the demo piece of it. But um, when we set out to design this creator agent AI assistant, one of the things that we wanted to do was reduce the amount of expertise you had to have in how AI operates and how to prompt AI to be a good instructional design partner and actually build that into how the AI interacts with you. So
Mm-hmm.
you can get out of like having to go skill up on, I have to understand how to teach AI how to do instructional design. And you can really kind of be more of a content strategist, something that Shannon and I were speaking about earlier today. So what Doug and I thought we'd do is just start to demo what the AI content creation process looks like in the Intellum platform, and then just talk about it along the way and give you a peek behind the curtain of what's going on behind the scenes. And maybe we can kind of
Yeah.
stress test it a little bit and see what happens.
Yeah,
Uh,
this is gonna be live demo. So
yeah,
we should sacrifice one to the demo gods. We'll see how this
totally.
goes. Live demo of software, and also we this is totally non-practiced. So when we met earlier to just prep for this, it turns out that Anderson and I both have a deep passion for meditation, right? And I was joking at Google actually that one of the number one internal, it was actually I think the most popular course for Googlers when I worked there was this course called Search Inside Yourself, which was a meditation course. And so we thought what might be kind of fun to talk through today and to try out. We'll see how this goes. You will be getting very live reactions of how we think this course is, or how good it is, or bad it is. Um, is we thought, why not use Creator to try to create a course about meditation? So, yeah. Anderson, if you want to kick us off and
Yeah.
show how it works, we'll see how this
So
goes.
yeah, we'll see how it goes. So within the Intellum platform, the way that one would access Creator Agent right now, this is a feature that is within our labs section of the Intellum platform. If for those of you that are not Intellum customers, Intellum Labs is a place where we release things before they go generally available to all customers. It's a way for you to opt in and experiment with features that are mostly development complete, but we're still trying to seek feedback and refine the output based off of customer usage. So I had that turned on in this particular account. And the way that we kick this off is by creating a new path. So I'll go over to the path sections here and start generating a new path. And this kicks off the creator agent workflow. And what we're going to be asked to do here is to fill out some information about the course that we want to create, including some stuff about instructional design, the intended audience, and the source material, which we're going to walk through all of that just so you can see how it works. Because this is going to provide some guardrails and some context for the AI assistant to refer back to as it's doing things like writing learning objectives and creating the content and the assessments. This kind of keeps it all nice and focused. So we wanted to create something about mindfulness. So I'll give this a name, mindfulness at work, and call this developing presence, clarity, calm, because those are the things I need from mindfulness at work right now. The course goal here, I wrote one up beforehand based off of some stuff that Doug and I had talked about.
Cool.
Uh, there were a couple of teachers that Doug and I both respect and have helped our own mindfulness practices. So Thich Nhat Hanh and Pema Chodron. And we were just kind of wondering, like, what does it look like to create a course where you're taking the teachings of practitioners like Thich Nhat Hanh and like Chodron, and merging that with research on mindfulness and centering in the workplace. So hopefully that's enough time for you all to read the course goal there.
This is the part that's super exciting for me is I'm like, now what is it going to come up with?
Yeah, what's it going to come up with?
It turns
Um,
out, it turns out that Pema Chodron, I believe, was an apprentice under Thich Nhat Hanh. So they should be rather like, this is not like putting two completely different people together. They should
yeah,
be pretty overlapping. Yeah.
I think we're looking at the same stream of mindfulness and Buddhist practice here. Audience. This is an optional field in the creator workflow. In the uh, Intellum platform, you can set up groups for learners, and you can select one or more of those groups here. Or if you leave the audience blank, it will create a course that is appropriate for any audience that you might have or any learners that might come in the future. I find audience to be most helpful when I'm creating something where it would be helpful for it to draw on the profiles of the learners that exist within that audience, because it just kind of tunes the content a bit more. And
So you're
then
going to say like a work audience for this one then?
I'm going to leave it kind of general for this particular instance,
Okay.
because this is the instance I have this set up on is an employee education
Oh, so
instance.
it's already kind of looking for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Got
All
it.
of the content that's in this in LMS instance and all of the learner groups that are already there are all kind of employees, workplace folks.
And we have a really good question from Kevin Clark. Can the audience be organization specific?
Um, yes, the audience can be organization specific. Yeah.
Yeah, which is neat. I mean, there's a whole, what we'll get to in a minute is like we can actually fire this all up based on a RAG, which is like, like basically we can upload a whole bunch of content that it's going to use, which
Yeah.
could include a lot of details about your organization and docs and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah,
Well, we'll get to that source material piece now. And I'll say as we kind of go into this part of it, because this is a feature that's still within Intellum Labs, it has some limitations to it that are only going to grow and expand in terms of the capabilities. So we have a few options for how you can get source materials for the creator agent to work with in creating the learning objectives and the outline and the course content itself. One of the things that you can do is you can connect it to other catalog activities. So if you already have courses within the Intellum LMS that you want to use as source material, you can do that. And you can use a combination of these things as well. You can upload files from your machine, and we have a couple ways of connecting this to cloud drives right now. I'm going to do a combination of stuff, pull in a couple of videos of Thich Nhat Hanh and Pema Chodron teaching from Google Drive. And then I have some PDFs on my local machine that I'm going to upload. And because of the way I'm sharing, there may be some of the pop-up dialogues that we don't get to see, but I can describe what's happening if you can't see it on the screen. Uh, right now in Google Drive, you'll see that we support PDF and MP4 files. We are expanding this to other supported file types as well across all of the material source um, options that are up there. So there'll be PPTX files and DocX files and all sorts of other files that will uh, be supported in the future. But right now, we just have a couple of things that we support for the Google Labs version. So I'm here in my Google Drive, and there's a couple videos I want to grab.
oh,
Right
cool.
now, these are single select. So if I want to do two videos, I'll just do this workflow a couple of times. And it's connected to my Google Drive instance that I kind of SSO'd into. And so it can pull that right over. And you see it's loading here. While it's doing that, I can go grab this other video of Pema Chodron teaching, and it'll start to upload that one as well.
And so in the future, people might be able to like, well, actually, is it possible to throw a YouTube link in now or not yet?
Not yet, but
Yeah.
that is on the roadmap. And I also think multi-select is also on the roadmap for this, so that, if I want to go get several documents or things that come from one specific place, I'll be able to do that.
Cool.
Um, One of the things that I discovered kind of by accident is that I can switch what material source or file upload um, material source that I want to connect with here, and it still preserves anything that's kind of in motion. So I mentioned I have a few files on my desktop. This is where you may not see what's happening on my screen. I'm not sure, but I'll quickly grab a few PDFs here and get those loading. So these are articles that I found related to mindfulness or um, meditation in the workplace.
Cool. And this is this place, Kevin, where if you have org specific docs or things like that, anyway, all of that stuff can go up there too, right? And it's going to
Yeah.
wrap it. So,
And
yeah.
yeah, Amy asked about for file type functionality expansion. Is there a timeline for that? I don't have a specific timeline, but I can tell you that since this is something that's already in labs, it's actively being improved and developed right now. I get to see all that kind of stuff behind the scenes, but I don't have like a firm release date for when those additional file types are going to be added.
Yeah.
And Pierre asked about file size limitation when uploading materials. That's a great question. There's not a different file size limitation than is supported across the Intellum platform. So the existing file size limitations for any video or PDF file that you would add as material throughout the Intellum platform apply here. I will say, and this is where I can save this now. I will say that what has to happen for the AI agent at this point is it needs to process all of those files. So I've added them in, and now it needs to process and start breaking them down, just like when you attach a file in any other AI workflow.
Mhm.
And that can take some time on the back end. So some of these larger files, 80 megabytes, 72 megabytes, these may take several minutes to process. And you would be able to see in the course kind of a processing bar that was similar to that upload bar. Um, we're going to get to that part of the process now. The last thing I wanted to highlight here is that you can choose a difficulty level for the course, which is going to help tune the AI agent as well in terms of how it writes the content and what it assumes that your learners may already know in terms of familiarity or competency. And I definitely want this to be a beginner
Yeah,
course.
I think that would make sense for the workplace. Definitely.
Yeah.
Cool.
So this is going to process for a little while. And Doug, you and I were talking about this.
Yeah, the easy bake oven. This is the part where we get to go easy bake oven, or in like
Yeah, right. Or like,
yeah.
like sick day, like PBS, um, where you get to kind of put something into the oven and then you don't have to wait for it to bake. You've already got something baked that you take right out so you can show the end. What you'll see here, it went ahead and it created this path, and it's given me this interface where I can start to define learning objectives and create activities for this particular course. And if I hover over the suggest objectives right now, it's telling me, well, we can't do that till after the source materials are processed. But have no fear, because I did this beforehand as well and uploaded those same 5 materials, and they're processed on this other course with the same name. So this is a carbon copy of what we just did here.
Uh, so there's some other fun Do you want to do? Okay, actually, yeah. Let me take a couple questions and then we'll get
Yeah,
into the objectives.
let's do it.
Underlying AI model. I believe that is actually something that can be customized. Like you can choose for your organization which one. But I'm guessing this is using ChatGPT. Is that right?
Yeah, so this is using OpenAI, and by default, that is the LLM that, and I think this is using O3, but by default, that's the LLM that the Intellum platform utilizes. We also have support for Google Gemini, and that's something that can be made at the instance level, that change. So it would affect all of the organizations and all of the users. And it would then kind of replace that LLM, update that LLM so that any of the AI features in the Intellum platform are using Gemini instead of OpenAI. That's something that has to be done through our support team. So it's real easy to just reach out and request that be done.
Yeah.
Um, those are the only two LLMs that we support at this time. We're always exploring options
Right.
to expand that, but I haven't heard that we're going to add anything else on soon.
And then Jason Wilkins has asked, will Evolve be getting an agent along these lines as well in a similar timeline? And the answer there is like yes, but it's going to take a little bit of time, I think. But
Yeah,
that's definitely in process.
that's right. In fact, that team is working on their AI roadmap right now, and so we should have something to share about that, either if not by the end of the year, by the beginning of 2026, in terms of what that's going to look like. Evolve customers will note that in September we released a pretty big redesign of the Evolve product, and the purpose behind that redesign was to make the architecture for Evolve much more AI friendly. And that's a problem with both LMSs and content authoring tools. The way that they were built from a software perspective didn't anticipate how generative AI would utilize data and need to have access and context for the data within those software systems. So, really, to make an effective AI content authoring tool, you have to know how the AI operates and build a semantically rich system that allows the AI to really permeate deeply within the architecture of the software.
Yeah.
Uh, for a lot of existing software, that just means you have to rebuild it. And so that's what we did with Evolve, and that's what we released in September. And we're working to kind of build out feature richness with that version of Evolve so that it has the same kind of stuff that Legacy Evolve is able to do, what it enabled for us is we can now create an AI roadmap that is going to have these like really deep and rich content creation workflows that will be able to utilize all of those different interactive elements and simulations and logic that Evolve users really, really love. It's not just going to be sort of this bolt-on thing that sits on top of an aging software architecture and suggests things for you to do. Uh, our approach to AI is we want the AI to be able to act on your behalf, even though you can still keep your hands on the wheel, instead of just making suggestions of what you should do next or things for you to copy and paste over.
Awesome. So keep the questions coming. With that, let's dive into this a little bit because actually,
Yeah.
like one of our next questions, I think allows us to talk about this a little bit. So, this entire system, I did have the privilege to help a little bit in the thought pattern of like how this is architected. And one of the things I really appreciate as an instructional designer is that this whole system keys off of learning objectives, right? And we all know in instructional design that learning objectives are central to driving impact, right? Like learners absolutely need to know what they're there to learn. And if we, and also as teachers, we need to know, or instructors, we need to know exactly what we are aiming for. And when we're more precise about what we're aiming for, we tend to hit the mark a lot more, right? And then therefore drive impact. And so this is really, really central to this whole system working in an impactful way. The neat part as well is that like it architects everything based off of learning objectives. So the LLM is able to kind of reference that, which is really, really helpful. And it's exactly how as an instructional designer we think through courses, which is, I think really beneficial. One of the other questions we have from John Kevin Rembuland is about the algorithms behind some of these things. And actually, this is kind of a good opportunity. He was asking about the algorithm behind the intermediate and the basic or advanced. And that might be, I'm actually not, I don't know that one in particular. That might actually be rather simple. But I will say that for some of the things, such as learning objectives, which we're about to do, um, I was actually key in architecting some of the algorithms that's behind that, which helped us refine learning objectives. And so, for instance, when you actually use Creator to define learning objectives, there is a specific algorithm we created that we tested over time and fine tuned to make better learning objectives. And one of the things that we did that was really fun. This was the very first part of this project that we did. Is we actually took real courses in the live that real instructor designers had made by really, really good institutions. And we then we put the entire courses into Creator, had Creator make its own learning objectives, and then compared those learning objectives and actually like graded them against the real courses of the real learning objectives. And it turned out that like these learning objectives actually beat the ones by humans, which was really like actually to be for me a little bit disappointing and kind of shocking. Um, and one of the places where I think they really stood out was that the learning objectives were really consistently written, of course, across the whole course. Which, as we all know in instructional design, a lot of times when we build courses, we have different people working on different modules, et cetera, et cetera. And so sometimes there's just not even that consistency. But furthermore, the quality was really, I think, pretty high. And so, do we want to push the button now
Yeah.
and suggest objectives? I'm really curious to, yeah, what do we get?
Yeah. So, what happens when you start engaging with the creator agent in content creation here? You click on any of these suggest buttons, it's going to open up this little side panel over on the right. And this is really how you remain that human in the loop, or one of the ways you remain human in the loop here is that nothing happens in a black box without your ability to give continued input or refine. So we're not kind of taking all of the source material and that stuff we configured on the first page and shoving it into a black box and then just spitting out a full course for you. We kind of want to walk hand in hand and give the opportunity for iteration all along the way. And then we
Ooh.
also want to give you the opportunity to manually edit and add to or take away from the work that the AI assistant does. Okay, so we can see these on the screen now, right? So it came up with 3 learning objectives, and yeah, let's take a look at let's assess these, Doug.
Yeah,
Based
yeah. I'm doing it right now. I'm like, ooh. Okay, so the first one is identify and implement simple mindfulness techniques, such as mindful breathing and body awareness to alleviate stress during the workday. Okay, so like if we were to evaluate this, like is it clear what the outcome is? Alleviate stress, I believe would be the outcome. So okay, cool. And then is it clear how we do that? And it would be like by identifying and implementing, right? So we have got really nice keywords there. I mean, I really like this learning objective, personally. The next one, practice presence and self-compassion strategies to build emotional regulation. And that I will say, like knowing Thich Nhat Hanh and Pema Chodron's work, that's really core to their work,
Mhm.
self-compassion in particular, um, to build self emotional regulation and enhance resilience in challenging workplace scenarios. That's awesome. I mean, what a cool thing for our workforce to have enhanced resilience. And then apply embodied mindfulness exercises to improve clarity, focus. Okay, so this one is about and foster positive workplace relationships. Okay, so it's about building relationships, resilience, and alleviating stress in the workday. Neat. Um, I would suggest we keep these, and then I'm kind of curious if there might be another one that we would want to add. I mean, because so we've got like alleviating stress, we have
Yeah.
enhancing resilience, we have fostering positive workplace relationships. I wonder if there's like one other one that we might like think to add that's like about, let's see. I don't know. Eh, what do you think?
Yeah. Well, I mean, your assessment of these was great. I think we should add an additional one on identify, practice, apply. Like my gut says that we should have like four or more,
Yeah.
but I'm having trouble coming up with what's not covered.
No, no. I think like I don't know. Let's what if we say accept, but then or can we say add one about like about maybe focus,
Yeah.
about
So
like about personal mental focus, something like that, because I think that that's a neat that's definitely something. I mean, truthfully, in this world of AI, like the mental focus part is especially neat. Um, we have another question while you're typing that in about everything revolves around the learning objective. And then how do they relate to learning impact? What I think we'll see, hopefully we'll move on past learning objectives in a moment, is you'll see how this then goes on to creating the content. Um, and then it is also mapped, learning objectives, of course, are also mapped to MCQ or to assessments, right? And so you can think of it that way as well, is that it can actually connect to the assessments themselves and things like that. I think the place that I don't believe is built yet would be then actually like thinking of it as like a BI, a business insight engine.
right.
There already is stuff like that that Intellum has, but it's not yet connected or wired up as through AI, which would be like impact stuff. But that is definitely something that would be possible for sure.
Yeah.
Um, do.
Okay, so it kept the I'll scroll up a little bit. It kept the same learning objectives that we had before,
Good.
the same three, and then it added a fourth one, cultivate personal mental focus by integrating targeted attention strategies that sustain
Creating
concentration.
concentration. Yeah, yeah, cool. I
Yeah.
like that. Perfect.
So when I click accept here, it's basically going to take these and it's going to replace this block over here. So now I see that I have these safe learning objectives. And just doing a time check, we're going to have to boogie a little bit to show a couple of other things. But
Right.
I'll quickly show that you can add additional learning objectives here. You can go in and edit the ones that were generated via AI. So with learning objectives now having been created, the AI is going to utilize those in combination with that source material that we've previously uploaded to suggest the activities. These will be the lessons that would take the learner through these different competencies that we've identified here as learning objectives. And so that's what it's going to do now is generate the lesson plan.
And while it's doing that, there's a question from Arnie Shakir. And sorry if I'm getting everyone's names not quite correct, but is there a general timeline or timetable as to core Intellum LMS will possibly be rebuilt for AI? And the reason I wanted to highlight this one is that that's actually happening right now.
Yeah.
Is that when will the LMS be rebuilt for AI to possibly add some flexibility for advanced users? Which is a great question.
Yep. And without getting into like all of the details around that, that rebuild is happening right now. And so the same thing that we did with Evolve to rebuild it and be able to have more rich AI workflows, that work is happening right now on the Intellum platform, and we'll be updating folks on progress as that goes along over the coming weeks.
And if you've ever been a system administrator of Intellum, which I have, and you see what AI can do when you query it to be like, find all the users, for instance, who started in the last 3 days and add this court or whatever. Anyway, it's unbelievable. It's a lot better. So yeah, I wanted to highlight that one because that's actually
Yeah.
pretty exciting. Um, all right, cool. Do we have stuff? We do.
Yeah, so it basically is broken it down into two different sections. One is foundations of mindfulness awareness, and then a couple of lessons or activities within that. And then you'll see that there's a foundations assessment that's here. And this is pretty key. Each section, it's going to suggest an assessment for your learners so that as you get through the lesson content, you're making sure that learners are giving feedback and are receiving feedback on what they've learned. And then there's a final course assessment that it's
Yeah.
suggested as well.
What I would say is, I think is like, I don't know, I was going to use the word cute, but what's really nice about it is like, this is architected in a very like fundamental instructional design manner, right? Like
Yeah,
the first one is going to be, is very key to the learning objectives. You can see that. And then those learning objectives are used to assess, right? And so there's a very natural flow there, which is pretty cool.
yeah.
All right. I'm really curious to see what the material actually looks like
All
then.
right. So we're going to accept this. And now it's going to take, and we could have done a whole revision, several rounds of revision if we wanted to expand this even more, or if we felt that there were some lessons that were missing here.
Yeah, like I would probably build out a third module if just
Right.
as like a but cool. All right. So now it's starting to build this course. All right.
Right. So what it's done now is it is, from a structural standpoint, it's created sections inside of the course here, and then gone ahead and created these sort of shell activities. These are the lessons where the actual content will be, and placeholders, kind of shells for the assessments as well. These don't have questions in them yet, but we're going to show you exactly how the AI can help with that. So what I would suggest is, Doug, let's pick one of these activities to go in and have it actually build out the content for. Is there one of these that is more compelling to you than another?
Yeah, I really because this is my favorite topic. Let's do the presence and self-compassion at work. Because I think this one's really at the heart of the theory. Um, yeah, and then
So
we can kind of see, yeah.
yeah, so what it did is it basically it created this activity with a title, and it went ahead and generated, when it created the activity, a couple of learning objectives that are specific to this activity. So I didn't even have to click the learning objectives button again. It did that when it created the activities, and you can see how these map back to, if I go back over here,
To our top learning objectives,
yeah,
right?
they're not
Right.
the same as the top learning objectives.
Right.
They're one sort of one level
One
down.
layer down. Right.
And
Um,
so go
yeah.
ahead. I'm going to click on suggest content so that this can start keying itself up while you talk.
No, that's neat. And then of course, like at that point, we could have added learning objectives. We could do whatever, like that helps
Right.
us further customize the content. I will say, like, one of the things I want to say, so it's going to start generating stuff, which is exciting. This is generally like the most exciting part of working with AI. And like we're going to be really honest about it. Like there's when you work with AI as an instructional designer, the hardest challenge is I love, if anyone has seen Dan Meyer has a great talk about, it's called like the last mile problem, right? And the last mile of working with AI, which is like getting it, if you think of it, he uses the analogy of delivering packages. Getting a package from its initial place to like within your city, that's relatively easy. Getting it to your actual doorstep and which door is the right door, which one, doesn't have people potentially stealing the package from it, which one is well lit, which one, anyway, all of that last mile stuff is actually the really hard part, which, of course, having an assistant embedded here is helpful, right? So like first we're gonna actually this is cool. So now we'll get to actually see what it pulls together in terms of activities. But then really getting this to a place where you'd actually want to put it in front of employees, obviously, like that's where the human in the loop is incredibly important. And that's where I think continuing to work with AI and prompt AI once we get these suggestions is a place where there's a lot of opportunity for growth. And also I would say like frankly a lot of opportunity for also like expansion and improvement in the tool too. So we have a learn outline. Okay.
So
Um, yeah.
yeah, when it creates a learning outline, this is what it's going to use to actually generate the actual course content here. because we're in a pretty tight little window area here, and I can expand this and open this up, but it can become somewhat difficult if we were to put all of the course content in here to read through and iterate on that. So it starts with an outline and says, let's get the outline generated first, and then we'll pop actual course content over here following this outline. One of the things is you were talking and I was reading through this. One of the areas, especially because this is about presence and self-compassion, that I would like to see it add to this is something about a reflection on the learner's own context or experience with self-compassion. So
Mm,
instead of just kind of like talking at them, that we're instructing the
self-reflection.
learner to take a beat, right?
Totally. Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Can I
So
add something in that too? Can
yeah,
we also have it this is now we're gonna nerd out for just a second, but can we also ask it to add something about Tonglen? The practice of Tonglen, which is like my favorite meditation practice where you breathe in the pain of the world and you breathe out love towards it.
yeah. So
I think
let's
that
start with that.
okay.
Um, add in how are we going to say this? The concept.
I like yours too though. I think they go hand in hand. Yeah.
How do you spell Tonglen again?
Tonglen. Yeah.
Yeah,
And actually, anyone in the audience, feel free to correct my pronunciation. I've actually only ever read that word before,
yeah,
so um, yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
And self-reflection. Yeah, that was your point, right? I
yeah.
think, yeah.
Oops, I got to be able to spell and type at the same time. Some points for self reflection.
Cool. Let's see how it does.
So it's going back to again the context and the source materials, and is going to regenerate. What I would expect is that it regenerates this outline with some additions to it.
Right.
I've also experimented with this a little bit, just changing the tone, saying like, I like this, but I need it. I want your section headings to be more concise, and I want this to read as simpler kind of content. And it will because sometimes it can come across like as a little. Sometimes it can come across as dry. Sometimes it comes across as overly complex or wordy. So
There
here
we
it
go.
added introduced
Yeah.
timeline.
And the distinguishing external awareness from internal kindness, which is cool. And then self-reflection questions. There you go.
Yeah, and
Okay.
yeah, even here, sort
I
of a
like
guide
that.
in
That
tongue.
actually was a really good, truthfully, that did significantly improve it. Um, okay, I also promised, Anderson just reminded me, I promised to give like tips and tricks of like working with AI. And I will say like one of the things that I think, there's several things that AI is really good at in instructional design. There's a lot that it's really still has a long, long way to get improved with. But one of them is actually voice, right? So like a lot of times actually there's courses that exist today in a lot of people's learning catalogs where they were written by a lot of different people. One of the simplest ways to improve them sometimes is actually to have a really consistent voice, and AI is quite good at doing that, especially if you work on like your prompt for that. You can get pretty good at improving voice across a course. The other thing that's unbelievably powerful, I would say, about AI is that so actually one of the things we thought about a lot back in the day at Google when we were creating certification exams is we would create these courses and then we'd want to make sure we were asking questions that were relevant throughout the entire like length of a course. But sometimes the courses, we had catalogs of hundreds of courses, and so this concept from an instructional designer to like analyze a course and make sure, for instance, there's questions targeting like every section of every course. That's a lot of like legwork. On the other hand, AI can actually do that pretty well and pretty effectively, especially if you use learning objectives as a way to sort of key into that. And so suddenly you can actually get like a heat map, if you work with AI, of your whole course about are things actually being addressed with multiple choice questions or whatever sort of assessment method you're using. There's a lot of like analysis layer type stuff that I think truthfully previously we wouldn't even necessarily think to do in instructional design that is now possible. And I would actually say, like, for what it's worth, there's a lot of research or there's a lot of stuff out there online about how working with AI saves you all of this time and that we're all like now sitting on the beach and not doing courses much anymore. And in practice, I would actually, and I'm curious what people in the audience would say here who've done this as well, but in practice, if I reflect on the work that Fresh Cognate has done over the last like 6 months, truthfully, it's mostly just allowed us to do things that we weren't able to do before. like I would say that our content is better. And actually, I feel like a lot of like there's certain things that are better and like far more rigorous than we were able to do in the past. And it's just like the human thing that we always do is that there's always this like we're gonna save time with this new wheel, and instead we're like, no, actually, we just decided to do it much better because we always have wanted to make these things better. Okay, cool. What do we have here?
So yeah, I was kind of scrolling through so folks could read this and as they were listening to you as well. And so basically, it used that outline to generate what is essentially here like a wall of text, right?
Right.
And this is where I think it's important to call out the limitations of this particular version of our creator agent that's in labs and anticipate what might be coming in the future. But it's you'll recall like I said, one of my biggest challenges as an educator was going from 0 to 1. It was that blank
Right.
page syndrome.
Yeah.
And here I've got a lot of good content that I can then come in and I can manually edit. I can add to or take away from, but I can also start adding in other elements as well to make this a richer course. So I can add images and videos and other interactive elements that the Intellum platform allows you to create and add. And then for time's sake, since we've got just a few minutes before the top of the hour, I did want to make sure that we could at least show like what the assessment piece looks like. So we're bridging like the whole
Okay.
instructional design process
Yeah.
here.
Yep.
What we would do if I was designing out the rest of this course, and I'm now feeling compelled enough that I could use this in my own life, that I may actually just build out the rest of this course so I can use it. Um, is we would go through with each of these activities and go through that same process and get that to a place where it had good solid content. Once we have the content within the activities, we can then come in and create an assessment. You really wouldn't be able to create this assessment until the content for this section exists. We have one of these two activities created. So this workplace integration assessment is really only going to be able to pull from this activity and whatever's in the source materials. It will be, I would tell you, the output would be a richer output if we had already created uh, the additional activity within that
Because
uh,
they'll use those as a
section.
reference point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to load up the shell of the assessment that is created. And I have the opportunity to either create a section quiz or a path assessment. The reason it's giving me these two different options is because it wants to know what material do I need to be looking at to assess the learner on and which learning objectives. This is going to be a section quiz. If I wanted this to look at everything in the path, all of the learning objectives, all of the activities and content, I'd suggest a path assessment.
And then what I would add is that, so in the things you've seen today, like learning objectives, content, and then now assessment questions, behind each one of those, when you actually load it up, we actually do have specifically fine-tuned algorithms that are based on instructional design practices that are being fed to the LLM to help it do it better, right? Like, for instance, it's thinking about things like Bloom's taxonomy. It's thinking about all kinds of educational theory and actually using that when developing the content, which should make it significantly better than if you were to just run to your local LLM today to
Yeah.
query it. And so I think like that is one kind of key advantage. I think that's kind of neat. And of course, it'd be really neat to see those things improve over time too. Okay, cool. So we've got uh, questions, right?
Yeah, so what it's doing here is it's suggesting the questions, and if you can probably recognize here, these are the learning objectives that were in the activity that we just created.
Hmm.
And so it is creating questions that map exactly back to those learning objectives, which is brilliant instructional design. And one of the things that falls by the wayside when you're starting to get pressured under time, or if you'd never created learning objectives for content in the first place. Um, we could have it continue to add additional questions here, or we can do that manually. Similarly to how we had it create an outline and then it created the content, it's going to create the questions. And then these, because this is still a labs feature, at this point in time, it's only going to create multiple choice question type, and it'll create all of the answers for you. So the different,
Can you can you get
yeah,
it to go? Get it to go. I want to see some questions if you don't
okay.
mind. Sorry.
No, no,
Uh,
no.
no, no,
Let's,
no. I want to see if we can answer some questions correctly while we're here. Um,
okay. So we can take a look at this particular question that it generated. So,
so
which, yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So, okay. So, which of the following best practices, which of the following best practices describe the concept of? Actually, I'm going to ask you this question, and you're going to see if you get it right. Which of the following best practices describes the concept of presence in the workplace? Okay, the first one is a terrible distractor.
Yes.
Criticizing yourself, distracting your second one is pretty bad. Focusing on past regrets and anticipating future anxieties, anchoring your awareness on present moment by noticing your breath, body sensations of the task at hand, avoiding work tasks. Well, this is kind of obvious.
Right. Actually, you know what? Like, I'm not super satisfied with this question. Um,
No, me neither.
because there should have been, you should have, I think, a good mixture of things that are like obvious distractors. And I think the rest of them, though, should be, close enough that they could possibly be an answer unless you have
Yeah.
uh, internalized the material, right?
It is. Somebody said, I think it's because you selected as beginner, perhaps. I mean, I do think this is actually funny. I'm working on a project right now that is all about improving multiple choice questions. And I will say, like, this one has all of the key attributes of being not particularly great, which is like, one, the
Yeah.
correct answer is way more specific and it's much longer. Um, and those two, those are like some of the most obvious things that help it out. But
But
yeah, we could obviously work with these over time. There's a question from Arnie that was like, Doug Anderson or Doug mentioned that the often the source material is created by different people, so the lessons could be a bit all over the place. Will Intellum eventually have the capability where you could add voice type prompts to make the content enthusiastic sounding or more exciting? And the answer is yes. And I think you can currently do that within like the activity itself. Like we could do that within the activity that we had just generated. But I have that's such a good question. I made the same question to Intellum when I was playing with this, which is like I would love to have that ability to do that for like overall for the course. And I believe that is something I don't think it exists yet, but I do believe that's something that's in the works.
yeah, that is something that is in the works. And I was just having a conversation with a product manager a couple days ago on that exact topic is giving our clients the ability to kind of tune the voice that the assistant on a couple different levels. One, the output that the assistant is creating so that it's more consistent with the voice and the tone that an organization would like to use in the content that they're creating. But also even tuning the voice of the assistant as it interacts with the different personas that are going to utilize AI features across Intellum. So it maybe sounds a little bit differently when it's talking to a program manager than it does a content creator than it does one of the learners.
And I do believe Kimberly is asking if you can reduce the number of options. I'm pretty sure you can ask it to
Yep.
do four options instead of five. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's definitely a possibility. In the future, it'd be neat. Like obviously, having different assessment types or richer assessment types would be cool too. But even starting with multiple choice, I will actually say also like as a practicing instructional designer, writing good questions is such a pain in the butt. And this is one of the places where I do really appreciate that 0 to 1 effort from AI. Right, starting with a question that's even not like, for instance, that question we looked at obviously has a lot of room for improvement, but that already saved me a ton of time. And like I could already think about, like improving those distractors pretty easily now, but it already gave me a pretty good thing to talk about and ask that is connected to the content and connected to learning objectives, et cetera, et cetera. So
Yeah. Well, I know we're right up against time, and we tried to do a lot there. I think we accomplished a lot in terms of going from like uploading source materials to at least having a course outline, an activity, and an assessment, learning objectives all generated. And again, the promise was never that this is going to replace the expertise of an instructional designer, but rather help you get to some content output quicker. That is still really high quality. That's where I think a lot of the efficiency gains are and where we're going to continue to see this particular product improve and trying to maybe take you out of the game of having to be an expert in how to prompt AI to be an instructional design partner. We're working to just build that into how the AI collaborates with you.
sweet. I hope it was helpful. Thanks for coming. Thanks for all the good questions.
Yeah. Shannon, I don't know if you had anything else that you wanted to hop on and say before we sign off, but this was exactly as much fun as I thought it would be, which was a ton.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you both. Thank you everybody for joining. Hopefully you took some things away today, learned a little bit more about how you could use Creator. If you're an Intellum customer, please go check out Labs. You can use that today, turn that on. If you have questions, please reach out to us. You can just respond to any email and we'll be there. All right. And with that, we'll let you all go and we will see you next month. Bye for now.